What's going on? It's Wasabi. Today we're looking at setting up the Underwriter for Catalyst. So in a previous video, we talked about the relayer, and the Underwriter works on top of the relayer, and it lets you, as an underwriter, earn fees for advancing ETH to settle transactions faster. So usually with EVM blockchains, the total finality time is like 15 to 30 minutes. And with this, you're advancing the tokens so that users can settle within 15 or 20 seconds and getting a fee for doing that in exchange for taking on the risk that there's reorganization or other issue with the transaction that would cause your funds to be lost. This is quite a bit more high risk, high reward than the relayer, where you're just getting small bits of ETH for sending the transactions. So before you do that, especially when this is on mainnet, it's important to familiarize yourself with those risks, which can be found in the Catalyst docs here under fast swaps, Underwriter fast swaps, and the risks down here at the bottom. So especially if you're using real funds, make sure you understand what you're getting into there. So in order to get started with the Underwriter, you need a couple of things. First, you need to have your VPS set up, and you need to have the relayer going. This is a view of the log files for the relayer that when you see messages like this, info debug, you know it's working. It should be looking something like this. So you're going to be installing the Underwriter software in the same VPS instance that you're using for the relayer. So you're just going to log into whatever account. I'm using DigitalOcean here. Okay, so one really important thing to mention before we go on here is that when we talk about setting up the Underwriter and getting gas and making sure you have the wrapped ETH on the different networks, this all is on a separate EVM address than your relayer. So if they are on the same address, there's a good chance you'll lose funds. It's not how it's designed to work. So please, please, please don't do that. Make sure that the private key for the Underwriter that we're going to be talking about setting up later, and the gas and ETH that you put on that account is a separate account from the relayer. And you're also going to need a bit more testnet ETH. So you can get that at Alchemy here, alchemy.com, and then there's a Sepolia ETH faucet that you can get 0.5 ETH from each day. You got to sign up with an email address, but that's free. So I recommend spending a couple of days farming some ETH and getting it distributed between Optimism, Arbitrum, and Sepolia testnets. And that ETH is not raw ETH. So you need two things actually. You need unwrapped ETH in those accounts for the gas fees, and you also need wrapped testnet ETH on those three accounts, and that wrapped ETH is what's going to be the underwriting funds that you're using that you would be sending as part of the transactions. So I recommend having at least one ETH on each of those three chains as wrapped ETH. So you've got your testnet ETH and your VPS all set up, and your Underwriter is going. The last thing you need is, again, the 3 RPCs that you get from Alchemy. We talked about this in a previous video, but you sign up Alchemy, you can get a free account, and you need the RPC URLs for Arbitrum, Optimism, and Sepolia testnets. So all 3 of those testnets. If you go through in here, it's under create an app, and then the testnet RPCs are called the API keys. So once you have all that, you're ready to get started. Just head over to the Catalyst documentation and get into the setting up an Underwriter page. So I'm just going to close this out and open up the console for my VPS. And go to that same directory. The same directory as the relayer, which is generalized relayer. And just start going through the instructions here. So first we clone the repository, and now we're making copies of the config files. So this is, if you've done the Underwriter, which you need to have done to get this far, this should be very familiar to you. And now we're going to configure the Underwriter in the same way that we did for the relayer. So there's a config.production.yml. And again, just like the relayer, we just need to copy and paste our information here. private key, this is going to be the private key of your Underwriter account, which again is different from the Relayer, which you can get from MetaMask. If you go MetaMask, click on the three buttons, account details, show private key, hold that down and make sure that you append a 0x at the start if you're getting it from MetaMask, because MetaMask won't automatically put the 0x there. And then scrolling down, all you need to do is fill in the URLs of your RPC for Sepolia. So this one we're going to be deleting. It has these public RPCs here, but those aren't going to be fast enough for what we're doing. So just say paste your RPC here, and you're going to do that. Go down and repeat for Arbitrum Sepolia and Optimism Sepolia, which would be here and here. All right, so I'm not putting my private keys, obviously, or RPC API keys on this video. So I'm just going to go ahead and add this in now, and we will test it out and see how it goes. So now we're just going to go ahead and start it up. And just like the Relayer, there is a log file that you can monitor with this command. And as long as you don't see any massive error messages, and it's going to look a lot like the Relayer when you look at this log file. So here's an example of a successful underwrite transaction. You can see it called the underwrite and check connection function, and you can see here the amount of ETH that was sent out of the account. Once the transaction finalizes after 15 or 30 minutes, there should be a separate transaction of the amount going back into your account plus the fee. I'm going to take a look at that in a subsequent video. But if you see this underwrite and check connection and the successful transaction on your Etherscan, then you know that you have the Underwriter up and running and you're good to go. So good luck and happy underwriting.